Hi there, it's Nicole for Lawn Fawn, and today's card features the brand new Fab Flowers Stamps and Coordinating Dies, a fancy folded banner die, and also I'm using a stamp and die from the Happy 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 stamp set and die and coordinating die collection. These florals are amazing. They're really a two-step kind of floral, meaning you stamp the more solid image and then you stamp the next one on top of it to get a two-tone flower. And with all the amazing Lawn Fawn colors now available, you can get some really beautiful florals with this stamp set. So many great ways to use this. I'm going to start with my first, the roses, and I am using the brand new Peachy King ink. And you can see that first stamped impression wasn't so good. This is exactly why I am using my Misty Stamp Positioner tool. I'm stamping this a couple of times. In fact, I'm going to flip it over because it my paper moved a little bit, which was completely my fault. I don't think I had the magnets down. But I'm going to stamp the images one on top of another to really get a nice solid stamped image. In fact, I'll even do that for the layering piece. And the Misty makes it so easy to layer these. I can lay the stamp right on top of that first image, and then you simply ink it up and stamp it again. So the base layer is Peachy Keen. The second layer was Guava. For my pink flower, I am using ballet slippers for my base color, and then bubblegum for my layering color. The pink flower up next to my first rose, I didn't particularly like the second color I put on top, even though it looks a little better now that it's dry. I wanted something a little brighter, so I am using that bubblegum ink on top of that first base layer. Next, I'm going to use one of the other floral designs here. And it wasn't picking up, I think it was wet. Okay, so we'll pick up that one. And my base layer is the butter ink, a really, really pretty light yellow. On top of that, I'm going to layer sunflower ink, which is one of my all-time favorite yellow colors. I love both of these. Very, very nice yellow colors. Again, stamping the layering color twice, just to make sure it's nice and dark. As all of these dye inks dry and are absorbed into the paper, they do tend to mute a little bit, even out, I think is what I like to call it. So if you thought that maybe there wasn't the best coverage when you first stamped it, by the time the ink dries, I have found that they generally look beautiful. For my purple flowers, this color combination is fresh lavender with grape soda on top. And these were two of them where I was talking about the color kind of evening out and lightening as it dries. They look a little harsh purple, I think, when the ink is still wet. But by the time the ink dries in the finished card, the purple flowers were some of my very favorite. I'll go ahead and stamp another one of my roses, plus a few other small flowers. I want this to be a really full bouquet on the front of my card. Floral cards work for almost any occasion. You can do anything with these. I'm going to create an anniversary card with mine, but birthdays, Mother's Day, all kinds of events, sympathy cards. These beautiful flowers work for everything. And I love the size of them and the shape of them. They're really fun to build. I'll stamp just a few more flowers here. I got to the point where I was doing a couple at a time, especially if you don't have them right next to each other. It makes it easy to ink up one with the next layering color and the other one with the other layering color, so you don't have to be switching them out all the time. I'm going to start stamping the greenery pieces now. There's some great greenery plus some stems with the Minty Fresh ink. This is probably my favorite ink color from the latest release. I absolutely love it. It's a beautiful, fresh, bright mint color, just like it says, and it is gorgeous. I think it's a really nice alternative to the traditional kind of green. There are even layering pieces for the leaves for this. I will stamp those with some celery stick ink for the little green accent on these leaf pieces. There are not layering pieces for the smaller greenery or the stems, just for the individual leaves. So the small and large double leaves and the single leaf. I stamped those twice as well. Want to get that nice and dark. Once I have all of my images stamped, and I do need quite a few leaves, so I will be doing a few more of those, doing the layering for all of those. I'm going to take the coordinating Fab Flowers dies, tape those in place, die cut as many of the images with one pass of my Big Shot as possible, and then go ahead and kind of lay those out. I've taken a fancy folded banner die, you can see the die there in the screen, and die cut it from vellum instead of traditional white cardstock or another color, so you can kind of see through it a little bit. I love vellum banners. I went ahead and folded it on the score lines and just used my bone folding tool to make sure I had a nice crease. On a scrap of smooth white cardstock, I'm going to stamp the word happy from the Happy 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 stamp set, line up the coordinating die with that, and go ahead and run that through my Big Shot as well. My greeting will read Happy Anniversary. The word anniversary is from the Happy 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 stamp set. I'll use a powder tool on my vellum banner. Ink up the anniversary greeting. I'm trying to find my acrylic block. And I tried to slightly bend my greeting and it just wasn't working. I didn't think it looked right. The banner does have a slight curve to it, and I was trying to match that, and really I ended up stamping it straight on, and that worked perfect. So in this instance, I didn't really follow the curve of the banner. It's very slight anyway, so I don't think it makes a huge difference. I am going to heat emboss this with some white embossing powder. If you've watched any of my videos in the past, you probably know I love white embossing powder on vellum. Then I've got my card base. This is some Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'm going to use this because I think it's fantastic for ink blending. I have a diagonal stripe stencil from Simon Says Stamp, and I started with squeezed lemonade. For whatever reason, I thought I was going to go more with a yellow background. And so I started with that, and I wanted to leave this in so you can see how maybe if you do the same thing and you start and you don't absolutely love something, how it can be fixed. And this just wasn't working for me. I went ahead and blended out the edges, thinking maybe this would be a little bit better. And the yellow was just maybe too bright, I guess. I don't know. It just wasn't exactly what I was looking for my background for this card. So I grabbed my Cracked Pistachio Distress ink, and I started by thinking maybe I'd just fill in the center area and maybe that would work. And it still was way, way, way too much yellow. It just was definitely not what I was looking for. So I went in with an even heavier hand with the Cracked Pistachio ink and darkened those stripes. Then I went in and went around the entire edge of the whole design with my Cracked Pistachio ink, really blending that, darkening it up, and covering up most of that squeezed lemonade. And I could tell immediately that that Cracked Pistachio was much more what I was looking for to work, especially with the fresh or minty fresh ink from the Lawn Fawn leaves and stems. I added just a tiny bit of squeezed lemonade there in the center of my design, kind of almost a highlight. I'm going to go back with my stencil now and add that detail because I basically blended most of that out. Those were just kind of all my trial and errors. I wanted you to see that I took the same piece of paper, I didn't waste it. I went ahead and persevered and was able to come up with a background that I absolutely loved. I'll blend out a little bit more with some yellow there. Spritz the whole thing with water from a distress sprayer. This will help it distress even more. Blot it dry with a paper towel, and that looks fantastic. That's exactly what I was looking for. Just a subtle, slight texture and some really pretty color to help coordinate with the florals. I'm going to build the florals here in the center using some glue dots to attach all of them. Then I'm going to hide 2 glue dots underneath the folds in the banner. I wanted to have a little slight dimension there, and the glue dots will be hidden behind those extra folds. I will position the banner, secure it, put a little glue because this is a pretty finely detailed little happy or die cut happy. Go ahead and secure that right above the banner. And then I'll attach the whole thing to a white top fold card base when I'm done. I took a white gel pen and added detail to the accent color on my flowers using little white dots, which I think makes a huge difference, adds a ton of interest to the flowers. It's an extra step that you definitely don't have to do. I kind of have been addicted to adding those little white dots here lately, so I thought it would be a fun little accent here and there. Then I'm going to take some Nouveau Crystal drops in Morning Dew, add some drops to the card, and also add some detail to the centers of some of the flowers. And when that dries, that'll have some nice glossy detail. Glossy accents would also work well for this same sort of technique. I hope you've enjoyed this card featuring the brand new Fab Flowers Stamps and Dies fancy folded banners dies and the Happy 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 stamp set and coordinating dies from Lawn Fawn. The supplies I used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.